And Andre, if I could bring you to the stage, welcome the amazing Andre from Vinimofo. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Great, come on in. So Andre and I have talked many times. He's in my book. And I've seen the journey just even over the last couple of years. So I'm just going to assume you know nothing about Vinimofo. I reckon you do, but I'm going to assume nothing. Talk us through how Vinimofo got started as an information product, basically, quaff, and then what it led to.
Right, but quickly, right?
Real quick,
Okay.
yeah.
So my brother-in-law, Justin, and I, we both had come from lots of stuff that wasn't working in our lives and came together with both a similar idea to create this sort of wine social site. So drunk one Christmas, we went into business together and then spent 5 years trying to make that work, and it didn't work, and we tried lots of stuff. We bought a combi and traveled around the country, made this show that we thought, content marketing, and we tried a check-in cellar door app and our sort of wine social app, which nobody found particularly useful, and nobody wanted to give us money for. So we then went quite desperate in 2011. We're like, well, shit, maybe the only way to make money in the wine industry is to actually sell wine, and maybe what people actually want to fucking do is drink wine, not just talk about it. So we launched Vinimofo.
Right. And talk us through the name, because the way the name came around is amazing, and it's all the power of the name. So talk us through how it came around.
Yeah, so we were going to launch Vino Mojo, which I thought was, a cute name. And then 3 days before we were going to launch, we were launching on a Monday, on the Friday afternoon, we got a, and yeah, I don't know how many of you, you would remember, Mark, launching your product, it's pretty stressful, right? There's a lot of moving parts, and you're launching this website, it's probably going to break. Anyway, so we were in that sort of mode, and we got a letter from an IP attorney, a cease and desist letter, basically saying there's going to be a trademark clash and you can't launch under Vino Mojo. And I called the CEO to try and sort it out. He was like, yeah, no. And so we had to change our name. And so it was pretty late and we were pretty stressed. And I thought if we just changed one letter, and we could change it back if we won the trademark and no one would notice and it'll be cool. So we're like Vino Moto, Vino Mogo, Vino Goto. It's just this moronic exercise, and drinking and stressed and desperate. And as a joke, out came, well, let's call it Vino Mofo for the motherfuckers who are trying to stop us from launching. And then we were like, no, we can't do that. That's juvenile. Don't be silly. We need a name. And then we just couldn't think of anything. So we were like, well, I don't know. Could we? No, you can't. You can't start a company called One Motherfucker. And we're like, but just as a joke. And it'll be like for a month, and then we'll change it back. So that was always the plan. But it took 2 years to win the trademark. So by then, everyone thought the name was okay, and I still hated it, but I had younger, cooler co-founders, and they liked it. So we stuck with it, and that's what we got.
And how important has that brand been, or that name been to, getting attention, getting cut through?
I don't know. I think, look, yes, what it does is, I think it's really important for a business. Obviously, everyone talks about you got to get your product right, and you've got to get a market fit for your product and find those people, and that's all right. But you've also got to stand for something, and people have got to want to feel a part of that something, right? And I think that's the next level of getting emotional engagement with your product or service, and ultimately your brand. And I think that's what creates a real high engagement customer base, which we call a tribe. And Seth Godin really coined that phrase. He's great. If you don't know him, sign up for his blog. He's cool. But this idea of that creates high engagement. And so calling yourself Wine Motherfucker, someone's either going, well, that's a bit childish, and quite frankly, it's rude, or they're going, yeah, all right, I get that. That's pretty cool. So when they come through the door to Wine Motherfucker, that's the last time I'll say it. When they come through the door, they're like, right, I feel like I get you. So you're already a step ahead, and the people that aren't, you're not wasting your time with. So that's the value I think it had. Look, would we still be going well if it was Vino Mojo? I think so, but
you wouldn't be telling that story though.
And it does. Look, we had to fight against being, this kind of yo, what's up, motherfucker kind of company, which we weren't, and which wouldn't work either. So we've tried to just be a pretty good, smart, useful, intelligent, humour-based company. Yeah. But the name is the name.
Yeah. Now I've got to ask a question because I remember interviewing you a while back, and you said, I asked you what business were you in, and do you remember that conversation? Yeah. And the two occupations that are very important to any startup. Can you talk us through what business you're really in?
Yeah, look, I think it was around, are you a tech company or are you a wine company? And interesting, we just had our performance reviews, and our head of dev, this great guy, we were talking and he was saying, we're not a tech company. We've got to be a tech company. That's my mission. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, they're just the whole team. They're not everything goes through. I should be at the operational level, the founding decisions on everything so that we can have, and I said, yeah, you're right. And so we have always said we're a tech company. Found out on Wednesday that we're not quite. But we have to be a tech company. And in fact, if you go to most people to raise money, there will be, if you don't have a tech founder, especially if you, at early stage, it'd be interesting to see whether you agree with this. If you don't have a tech co-founder, it would be come back when you've got a tech co-founder, because everybody knows how difficult it is to get the platform geared up and right. And no matter what you are, if the platform in this day and age isn't right, then people aren't going to give you a second shot. It's just not going to work. That's my feeling. So you've got to be a tech company. Having said that, if we weren't a wine company, if we weren't just passionate about wine, nobody would particularly trust us.
So it's the two things, isn't it? The hacker and the hustler are the two things. I don't want to steal your thunder. That's your idea.
Yeah.
Talk us through the hacker and the hustler, because every time I tell that story, and I've borrowed it so many times, people go, wow, that's really revolutionary. Talk us through what the hacker and the hustler means.
I don't know if it's revolutionary, and I may not have invented it. I may have heard it and then
matter.
thought I invented it. I think I invented no. Look, it's just, I think the ideal founder couple is what, in my mind, is you've got to have a developer, but a great developer, like a 10x developer, and you've got to have someone that can passionately sell what you do and reach your market. And I guess that's the hacker and the hustler.
Excellent. So talk us through Catch of the Day, that moment where you decided we're going to take this opportunity to partner with a very large company. Why did you do that?
You're right. Okay, so we'd been like bone-ass broke for 5 years before we launched Vinimofo, and desperate. And Vinimofo from day one, once we got past the little name change, worked. People buying wine and more people telling their friends, and we were like, wow. And then the media was interested in us because we were part of this whole deals and group buying sort of hype at the time. And as soon as we came on the media radar, the wine industry is Coles and Woolworths. And that's what we came into. And Coles and Woolworths weren't online, and as soon as they started reading about little Vinimofo, they were like, don't think we want that just yet. So they would just, I just get in trouble from the ACCC actually. Well, I don't get in trouble. I just get calls from the ACCC after I do an event and I talk about this. And they go, we're just investigating rumours of anti-competitive behaviour from, can you give us any comment? I'm like, no. But anyway, no, okay, I'm just going to go, yes. So Woolworths would just ring our producers, the pricks, and go, don't deal with Vinimofo or we'll drop you. And so producers would started ringing us up going, oh shit guys, I'm so sorry, can you pull our product? Just got in trouble from our national sales rep and blah, blah. So we found ourselves without product. So we were like, what are we going to do? Well, we need to be bigger. We need to place bigger orders so that producers will tell the retailers to get stuff. So we're like, how do we do that? Well, we better raise money. Okay, well, and then we were like, well, and money was forthcoming. We don't really need money, we need people. So we can sell more wine. And so we nearly did a deal with Fairfax. But in the end, we thought, well, we need people, but we also need a partner who knows retail, because we don't need retail. So we ended up partnering with Catch of the Day, who were at the time the biggest online retail group. And that was because they had a lot of capital, so we could buy big, and they had a lot of people, so hopefully we could reach a bigger audience. And look, it was good, and we learnt a lot for about 12 months, but it wasn't quite right, and we couldn't see long-term value from that, and we just wanted it back. We wanted to be independent again, so we bought the company back from them.
And talk us about that moment in June, and it was zero bank balance. You woke up, had to start all over again. What was that like?
Yeah, it was good. Look, it wasn't like Catch of the Day are good people, and they're entrepreneurial, and so we didn't have any sort of, there was no sort of dictatorship. There was no sort of corporate bureaucracy or anything like that. They invested in us because they were like, well, I hope you know what you're doing, because that's why we've invested in you. So go for it. But it had become a little bit about Tuesday morning sales meetings and our pride as business people to perform. Whereas when we bought it back and it was, we had no money in the bank account, and it was midnight on June 30, and we're all there online watching the sales ticker. And the first sale came through at like 12:03, and it was 3 cases, and it was $587. And we all just had that moment of like, okay, $12,000 to go until next Wednesday's payroll. But we're there, and we just felt it. It felt real. It was like visceral and life and death again, and it felt right. So I think that was really important, and I think we just got way smarter. I think sometimes you have to have a change for all the learnings that you've had to sort of kick in, I think. You know, you go along and you're learning stuff, but you may not know you are, and you may not be putting it into practice. We had a big change, and so everything we learned over that time, both from Catch and without. Also what we learned that we'd done wrong. I think we just changed it, and we got very idealistic. You know, I think we got back to being really idealistic, and that helped us. We were like, no, we want to do things right. And it worked. I think people identified with that. And we also had a lot of people come back, and this was really interesting. You know, I told you about it was really important to stand for something and to be that something that people want to feel like they're a part of. Well, we'd opened up our business story and our story of, you know, a couple of guys in a garage and growing. We told that story to our tribe, our customers. And when we bought the company back, we had this influx that we literally doubled month on month our monthly revenue from the June to the July we bought it back. It's because we had all these people come back, go, oh, I'm so glad you bought it back. I felt like you'd sold out. That was one thing. So they were disappointed in us for having, you know, sold what was a majority of the company. Or they said, we didn't think you needed us anymore, which was the most, you know, wow for me. I was like, you feel like we need you. We do, of course we do, but you actually feel like you have helped us build this company, which of course they had. But we thought, what an honour to have customers that feel that way about their connection and their place in our business. We're like, fuck, all right, we better really take notice of that. And we better not let them down again. So
good stuff.
That was, yeah.
So in closing, and this is, you know, it could be days we could talk about this, but your relationship with Elaine in terms of the venture capital, I believe it was 25 million, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk us through what that means to you. What are you going to do with that and why?
Well, I went to Europe last month. It's a great holiday. No.
Some nice restaurants. Yeah.
No. Look, we had a few, so there's two parts to that. One, we just got to a stage where we felt like we finally, you know, because you talk yourself up all the time as a business. You're always telling people, oh, we do this great, and then you struggle like hell to try and do that great. But we had a bit of a moment about 12 months ago, Justin and I, where we actually believed that we could be great and could be really useful to people all around the world, and we could be, you know, the Uber for transport and the Airbnb for hotels. We just got a feeling settled that, oh, wow, it seems to be working. Everybody that does try us, you know, unless we stuff up something in delivery or we give them a bad experience when we try and make up for it, but everybody likes what we do that likes wine. And we thought, I think, and we were traveling a bit, you know, just meeting with people in the States and in China and investigating new markets, and we just got a feeling that everybody in those markets would like us too, and we would be useful. And so with that came a belief that, all right, this is not a get a good market share in Australia, and this is we just need to find everybody on the fucking planet that loves wine now. Like not in 30 years, and we'd started a bit of investigation launching in China, and we thought it's going to take 2-3 years to do this way, and if we want to get around the world, it'll be 30 years, and that's a long time. So we thought, and we'd always been profitable, and so we'd always thought we would just fund our own growth. We thought, no, we need to do that. We need to find everybody in Australia, and that means a big campaign, not just digital, which we did. We need to, like now, we need to do something that goes, hey Australia, if you love wine, here's Vinimofo, try us. If you like us, great, let's go. And we need to launch everywhere now. So we thought, well, we need money for that. And then we also had some private investors who'd helped us buy the company back from Catch of the Day. And part of that sort of cycle of, you know, some of them would want to see a return and maybe move on. And so this was the time to get partners. They were very much silent partners. It was time to get partners that knew this level of growth and had experience overseas, and that we could then start to work this shit out with, you know, and that we respected, and that there was a cultural fit. So that's where we auditioned a lot of companies, and we were in a good position to not be desperate, which allowed us to really interrogate the culture and the people, which is, you know, a luxury. It's nice to say you've got to make sure there's culture fit. If you're like going to have to go back to your day job if you don't find $250,000 in the next month. It takes conviction to stick with that, but you've got to, because it's like, if you rush into a marriage, without really investigating. We didn't have that kind of interview process with Elaine, but we did. We went out to lunch, and then we got drunk, and we had board meeting level sort of discussions, and we met founders, and we spoke to portfolio other companies. We really, when we decided we liked them, we really investigated, and we were reticent. We were hesitant to take money. We had been with a partner, and then we'd gotten free, and we were like, all right, we were single again, and it was pretty cool and fun, and we weren't so keen to rush into another marriage. It had to be just right. And so far so good, huh?
Oh, great. Well, on that note, can't you just see the authenticity of Andre, and we wish you all the very best with your expansions around the world. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much.